Hi everyone, so today I'm going to show you how to set up and balance the PilotFly H1 Plus gimbal, and the one step that's going to be missing from this tutorial is what settings to put on this, because you do need to connect this up to your Android device, very easy to do, or to a computer or something like that, or to an iPhone possibly as well, and put the settings correct for your camera and lens, mainly to do with the weight of that system that you're using. So right now I have it balanced here, but I'm going to take this apart, completely unbalance it, and show you guys how to set this up, basically as if you just took it out of the box. I do apologize if I'm sweating a little, it is hot in here, and in case anyone's wondering why I have a softbox in the background, no reason, just for decoration. You're going to want something to put this on. Ideally, I mean, you can balance it like this, but it's going to be a little bit of a pain to figure out a way to hold it and balance it. You can do it like this, just hold it between your knees, but it's not that comfortable. So ideally, grab a light stand or a tripod or anything with a 1/4 inch connection. So, okay, as you can see right here, what we're trying to reach is a position where no matter where you move the camera to, it will stay in that position. So, you know, I'm tilting it down, tilting it up, it's just staying in that position. We don't want it to be like a traditional mechanical stabilizer where whatever you do, it returns to center. That's not what we want. We want it to just float in place. Wherever you move it to, we want it to stay in that position. Now I've got it here set up with a Giotto's quick release plate, and you don't have to use this. You can just make the adjustment from here. But it is recommended to have a quick release plate on here. It makes it much easier to take the camera on and off this. And a quick release plate also allows you to change lenses. If the lens isn't a huge weight difference from the lens that you're swapping it from, then you won't have to do many other adjustments. You'll just mostly have to do this adjustment, lock it in place, and then you're good to go with a new lens. But if there's a big weight difference with the lens, you might have to adjust some of the other parts as well. Now we have 4 places where we need to make these adjustments to get the balance correct. We have here, 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 and here can be replaced with here if we have a quick release plate on here. Each adjustment has 2 screws to lock it in place. It is important that after every adjustment you do, you lock that back into place, except for the first time when you're just sort of moving it into rough position, then you don't have to lock it in place every time. But you want to make sure that after every little adjustment, you lock it back into place. Otherwise, it's going to throw off the balance of your other areas on the PilotFly. So you do need to lock these in place. I'm going to repeat myself. You do need to lock these in place after every adjustment. And when you lock them in place, you want to lock this one in place first, then this one, not this one first. The reason for that is that this one pushes this metal plate towards this. If you lock this one first, then it's possibly going to lock it in place in the wrong position. So you want to lock that first, then this. First step is to put your quick release plate on your camera. Make sure that's nice and tight. Same goes for the quick release plate on here. If this thing turns on here just a tiny bit, that's going to throw off your balance. You don't want this to turn. And once again, that's a good reason to use a quick release plate on here to prevent the camera from turning, because then you can tighten this much more, and you can use a piece of rubber between the quick release plate and this piece if needed. So you want to set this up with this thing on the left and your camera's hand grip on the right. Put that into place. First of all, we're going to start with this one over here, because this is going all the way to the right and it's preventing us from doing anything. So I'm going to move this left and right to bring the camera to be floating in the correct position. So if it's tilting to the right, I'm going to push the camera to the left. If it's tilting to the left, I'm going to push the camera to the right, meaning push this to the right. So I'm going to check, basically check, let go, see which way it's going. I've got it into roughly a good position. Now you see it's returning to center. That means that it's roughly balanced, but that means that something else here isn't balanced. So next up, I'm going to move to this. And as you can see, this is a process of moving between these little adjustments, bringing them to be more adjusted, you know, bringing them to a place that's more correct than they were before, and then going over it again until you get the balance correct. So now we're going to adjust this right here. So this adjustment is adjusting how bottom or top heavy your camera is. So now as you can see, the camera is wanting to fall backwards, which means that the camera needs to go forwards. So I moved it forwards. So now the camera wants to fall forwards, but it also wants to fall backwards, which means that it's completely top heavy. So as you can see, it just completely wants to flip upside down. So that means that it's too far up. It's too high, too top heavy. So I'm going to pull this down. So now, as you can see, it's wanting to return to being straight, which is a little better, but it's not what we want. So I've moved it too far down. So I'm going to adjust it back up a little bit and then check again. So that's a little better. So I'm going to lock this in place and then move over to the next adjustment, and then we will come back to this. Okay, so now I'm going to check the left-right adjustment again. So as you can see, it's wanting to move a little more to the left. So I'm going to undo this adjustment, push it a tiny bit to the right, and lock this back into place. Good. So what we're aiming for is that whatever position I move it to, it stays in that position, which is what we got. So we're going to lock this in place and then double check that. Now, with this adjustment, we've got two things to watch out for. We've got the actual placement left and right and how top heavy it is, because we don't want it to completely flip and we don't want it to return to center. So that adjustment is done from this piece. Now you might come across an issue where in this direction, it seems to be set up correctly with regards to how top heavy it is. So right now, when I move it to this position, it's not wanting to flip over and it's not wanting to return to center. So that's good. But if I turn this, it wants to fall forwards and flip upside down, which means that it's top heavy. So what's causing that? Because we only have one adjustment to control how top heavy it is. So what's causing that is this piece right here. If I didn't lock this in place properly, then this is going to do that. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that I first lock this piece in place, then I lock this piece in place. And the reason for that is that this screw locks this plate to here, presses it against there, which makes sure that it's straight. Because if this thing is tilting just a tiny bit, then that's what's going to happen. You're going to have this weird issue where this is falling down, but in that direction it's fine. So I'm going to undo the top piece, lock this screw right here, nice and tight, and then lock the top piece. And now you'll see that it's brought it back upwards a little bit, which means that it's top heavy in both directions. So now this way it's top heavy and this way it's top heavy, which allows me to make the adjustment correctly from here. Once again, this is why you need to lock the screws in place after every adjustment you do. Otherwise it gets a little bit confusing. So I'm going to undo this and I'm going to push it a tiny bit down. You know, if it's flipping over, then you want to bring the camera a little further down. That's roughly correct. So I'm going to lock it in place and then double check that. So now that is still a little top heavy. Now, when I'm doing these very fine adjustments, the way that I'm not moving it too far is I'm using a little bit of pressure. Rather than holding this in two places and trying to fight this thing, I'm actually just using my thumb with very controlled pressure. That also allows me to feel when it's moved like the tiniest little 0.5 millimeter. So I've moved it down. So now whatever position I move it to, it stays in that position, and that's what we want. Now you might notice that there's sometimes tiny movements, meaning, you know, if it's like this, it might just move a tiny bit. That's just the way that the motors, you know, they have little areas where there's a little more or less pressure. So little areas where the motor just wants to sit more comfortably into. That's not a problem. So now the last adjustment we do is this, and then we'll go over the other adjustments again, double check that they're all fine. So I'm going to take the entire thing and tilt it. When I tilt it, I want to make sure that it's not swinging in one direction or the other. So for example, right now, this wants to swing this way. As you can see, it's just the camera wants to point downwards. So what that means is that the camera is too far this way, too far in the direction that it's going in. So I'm going to push it the opposite direction. So as you can see, once again, a controlled move with pressure to do these fine adjustments. I'm going to move it back and check, move it back and check. Now, if I move it too far, it will spin the opposite way, and this piece is going to want to fall downwards. So then just push it back until I get the right position. So what I want to have is, while it's tilted, whatever position I move it to, it stays in that position. So that's roughly correct. And then I'm going to lock the screws, then check again. Once again, locking this screw first, then this screw. Now I'm going to check the other adjustments again. So I'm going to tilt it this way, make sure that it's staying in place, tilt it this way, make sure that it's staying in place. Same goes for up and down. As you can see, that tiny little movement there, that was just from the pressure of the motor. That right there, it's from the pressure of the motor, not because of an incorrect balance. And the way to know is just push it a little further. If it's staying in place, that's fine. Okay, so then now we're good to go. I do apologize once again that I don't know the correct settings for each different camera and stuff, but I will have links to my settings that was used here with the A7S. Thanks for watching. I will see you guys in the next video.